Not so long ago, in Toronto, Canada, Edgar Wright was making a movie. Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation of scene analysis done on the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a film made by a British director based on comics written by a Canadian man, Brian Lee O'Malley. To keep the film grounded in its roots, most of the film was shot also in Canada. Not only that, but the production companies were from around the world too, with one of them being Dentsu, which is a Japanese advertisement agency. With all that, the film has now been classed as international. You're probably thinking, wow, that's a lot of international, we probably couldn't get any more. I say, yes, you're right, there is no more. Scott Pilgrim released in 2010 to a huge box office success and everyone was so happy. The film was a huge flop, sitting on an estimated budget of $60 million, which is enough to buy one of these bitchin' Ferraris. The film only made about $48 million worldwide, which is enough to afford a home, or buy a 1967 Chevrolet. Despite the film's struggle in the box office, it began to amass a cult following later, which would continue to feed the underdog of cinema until it was ready to be born into a world that would appreciate it better. In fact, the film resurfaced recently for its 10th birthday, which saw the re-release of the film to select theaters, including the updated soundtrack, which has Brie Larson's cover of Black Sheep, and some other cool stuff. So, what about this Edgar Wright guy? I mean, who is he? Well, Edgar Wright is a British director who's only made some of the best action-packed British satire films you and I have ever seen, such as Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, to name a few. In recent years, however, Edgar Wright has turned from his normal cup of tea and taken the American drink instead, indulging in some Hollywood movie making, which came in the form of 2017's Baby Driver. And at the time of writing this, Edgar Wright is slated to release his next feature film, labelled The Last Night in Soho, coming out to cinemas in October 29th. Yeah. So with all that being said, let's get into the scene that we'll be looking at today.
I gotta pee. Pee time.
And then it was time for Toronto to drown in the sweet sorrow of the crash at Demon Head!
That guy on base?
Oh, yeah?
That's Todd.
I know! Oh, yeah?
You know?
Oh, yeah!
Oh no.
Hello again, friend of a friend. I knew you were. Our common goal was waiting for the world to end. Now that the truth is just a rule that you can bend, you crack the whip, shape shift and trick the past again. Send you my love on a wire, lift you up every time, everyone pulls away from you.
Let's start the scene by establishing the characters that are present within it. Scott is the movie's main protagonist. With him are his two bandmates, Stephen, the talent, and Kim, the drummer, as well as his new girlfriend and Death Trap, Ramona Flowers. The scene opens with an awkward moment between the four of them as they all center in on Scott, awaiting his response about his ex-girlfriend Knives Chow, who is moments before seen with their friend young Neil. So Scott, in a desperate attempt to leave the awkward situation, pulls out Old Faithful "I need to pee" excuse, but fumbles his words, causing it to come out as "I need to pee on her," which could come off as an obscure R. Kelly joke, but in this case, it's just Scott caving under the pressure of all his exes being in the same room, and in classic Scott fashion, likes to retreat from the problem, which is just an epic display of his character. This is met with confusion from his bandmates and a rather tense side-eye from Ramona. This immediately tells us that tensions are running high for Scott as he desperately tries to run and distract himself from the storm that is brewing in front of him. And this is where we meet Envy Adams, Scott's infamous ex-girlfriend, after Kim but before Knives. and Todd, one of Ramona's 7 evil exes. Amongst the excited crowd, we can clearly see where Scott and Ramona are, thanks to her neon blue hair, who look a little less excited to be there. And just behind them is Steven and Kim, though these two groups are distant from each other, as if to maybe speak for the emotional distance between Scott and his bandmates growing bigger and bigger as he obsesses over Ramona more and more. Turn to the stage and we see 3 figures from the Clash at Demon Head cloaked in shadow on the stage, momentarily revealed by a flash of light set to the beat of the music playing. As the band begins to play the intro for Metric's Black Sheep, Scott points out who Todd is, which is met simply by,
Oh yeah,
That's Todd.
I know. Oh yeah,
You know?
oh
Oh no.
In 2 simple words, Ramona shook Scott to his core. The interjection of Envy's "oh yeah" lines from her song slide in perfectly to the conversation, which in turn answers Scott's question to Ramona. It's in this moment where Scott's eyes widen with horror at the realization that the past he has been running from has now found him. With the stakes now apparent to both the characters and the audience, the tension has built to a new level where the atmosphere of the concert has changed entirely from being an awkward encounter to what will be a deadly engagement. At last we get our first full glance at Envy as she fades into the scene through the lighting. Her expression is stoic, her stance locked in place, staring directly into Scott, with the accompaniment of the song's opening lines.
Hello again, friend of a friend. I knew you were.
The song plays directly into what Envy is saying to Scott without having the two of them converse. The communication is there and the message is clear. Each line of her song speaks directly to an individual character, but I'll cover more on that in a bit. As the guitar hits the power chords, the scene breaks between holding a single shot in frame to instead splitting it in 2 comic strips, each side showing a different character. First, it's Envy and Scott, Envy throwing her hair around to create a mess of her hair, adding to that bad girl aesthetic that she's got going on, to Scott, who is stuck in a mixture of horror and hatred towards Envy. The scene does the same comic strip cut again, this time between Todd and Scott. Todd stares straight into Scott with a menacing look, eyes forward, expression sharp, in a form of intimidation. Scott is still stuck in the moment, wearing the same expression. The lines that come after the song speak to Ramona's unfaithful behavior towards her ex.
Now that the truth is just a rule that you command.
This is then followed by another comic strip cut between Ramona and Todd. This time, Todd has taken a different stance and has tilted his head up, looking down his nose at Ramona. His facial features create a scowl at her. This is more than an intimidation, it's a statement. I am above you. Ramona, on the other side of the screen, shows a discomfort in her character. There is a subtle hint of fear. Her expression is nowhere near as drastic as Scott. This could be attributed to the fact that she's been through this awkward ex stuff 7 times before, and that this feeling is not uncommon for her, and perhaps the fear she may feel may not be for her, but for Scott. And not only just that, there may still be some slight attraction towards his character. Before the song breaks into the chorus, we are given one more comic strip cut, but this time all 4 of the key characters are placed in their own strip. Envy is wildly throwing her hair around, ignorant to Scott and everyone else. Scott fixated on the girl who kicked his heart in the ass, watching with pained eyes. Todd still staring daggers into Scott with a menacing scowl, and Ramona, who seems to be caught in a mixture of fear and sadness, and she looks at Todd from the corner of her eyes, never looking at him directly. The chorus kicks in and the crowd is loving it. It's a banger of a song and people are jumping and clapping, enjoying themselves. Well, all except for these 4. Steven and Kim are in the back, though Kim is once again cast to the side and is barely in view, while Steven can be clearly seen and is looking rather unenthused. Scott and Ramona stand in front of them, both dead in their tracks. Neither have moved during this whole sequence. Ramona's side-eye glance to Scott is met with Scott's pure disgust and horror at the situation he has now landed in. Both, however, are expressing the same thing. What the fuck? With these 4 characters in the crowd expressing their disgust and disinterest in the performance amongst the crowd of people enjoying it, it creates a striking contrast of a bittersweet moment. On one hand, an awesome song and performance with the crowd loving it. On the other, a dark and harrowing clash of the exes. Edgar Wright's visual style is what makes his movies so iconic and unique from other films. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is the holy grail of his visual expression. The movie is an adaptation of a comic that was made into a game. So with this, the movie takes elements from both the game and the comic, giving us the hyper-realized fantasy Toronto, where people smashing into coins is apparently a common occurrence and is accepted by the masses. This scene when the Clash Demon Head Band is heading onto stage to perform, there is text on the screen that mirrors the like of the comic book text with the same sort of font and fashion. When the band start to perform, we see a glowing red wavelength line emerge on the stage that moves in accordance with the music, giving it a physical form and presence within the scene. This gives the scene so much more life and energy, and to further cement its presence in the scene, you can actually see the reflection of the wavelength on the drummer's glasses that give her this cool laser-like eye and add to the drummer's mysterious appearance. Envy's opening "Oh yeah" lines are also given a physical form as each word appears and dissipates. This taps into the comic origin of the story, giving the stylized look of the comic a place within the film. This is done once again at the end of the scene where her lines disappear in the same fashion and fading out with her vocals. Though not present in this scene, the film often uses onomatopoeia, which is a common comic book technique used to emphasize actions. The film utilizes this and works it into scene transitions, which offer a unique viewing experience. What makes the comic book and video game style work so well is the way they are tied into the world and treated as part of it. The song Black Sheep, performed by the fantasy band The Clash of Demon Head, is actually a real song written by the band Metric. This song's place in the film is quite key, especially when you look at the lyrics and contrast it with the narrative of the film. Each line speaks to the characters present and their actions towards one another. The title of this song also being Black Sheep already speaks to how Envy feels towards Scott and Ramona. They are outcasts of love and a disgrace to it, which in turn could be said about Envy as well as the other 7 evil exes of Ramona. They are all victims of love and heartbreak, or the cause of someone else's, and this song taps into their emotion and plays on that fragileness of love. And with all that being said, that is all there is left to analyze for this scene, or at least all I could find anyway. And I hope it's given you a new perspective on it, or told you something you didn't already know. Thank you all for your time.